So for the counselling side, I can't speak for the coaching side. I'll let Sarah speak for that side. But for the counselling, I've already been speaking to people who just do counselling, don't work in my space, about whether they have ever worked with people who cannot have children, and they have. And it's kind of they they've sort of said, oh, and I'd say, well, how have you worked with them? And they've sort of said, well, and this is what I've done. And I said, well, have you thought about, did you ever bring any bingos in? And they're like, well, what bingos? I said, did you ever say to them, have you thought about? And they went, yes, we have. And it's like, well, that isn't really keeping someone safe in what is meant to be their space to be not fixed, just listened to.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast with Sarah Lawrence, Berenice Smith and me, Michael Hughes. And if this is your first time here, our podcast delves into the many facets that make up the childless identity, as well as what is going on in the wider childless community. And our hope is that with all our special guests, we can help you craft your own narrative and what it means to be part of the childless community. We also aim to educate those not in the community so they can begin to understand and support those in their lives who may be facing a life without children. Now, this episode is the anniversary of 3 years of the Full Stop Podcast, and we've dedicated it to the wonderful initiative that our own Sarah Lawrence, along with her colleague Sarah Bagg, are working on. So let's let them tell you all about it.
Sarah, welcome to our birthday episode.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yes,
yeah. It is.
That's exciting. I feel privileged that I'm allowed to be on your show for your birthday. I missed my birthday again this year because I had COVID 2 weeks ago, so it was a write-off.
Well, consider this another birthday themed thing.
No.
Are you better now, Sarah?
Yeah, I feel like I've got a bit of a head cold still, but my energy levels are so much better even than they were like a week ago. So yeah,
that's good. Bloody COVID.
Yeah.
So Sarah, just for my own, because I'm a geography geek, where in the UK are you?
I'm right at the bottom. Brighton's right on the south coast.
Okay.
Any further, I'm in the sea or in France.
I know where that is. My cousin lives there.
Yeah.
I love Brighton.
There are so many people in that part of the world in our community. I'm going down to Wilmington in September, and I think there's at least 3 or 4 people that I've got to go and meet there. Oh, Michael road trip, see. There's quite a lot of people there.
Hey, you got a long way to catch up with me.
Yeah, I know. But
I saw Mina in South Australia when I was there.
Oh, here we go.
For an introvert, I won't do too badly, given that.
No, hats off to you.
Such an introvert, really. Sarah, I'm so impressed because you've put on your social media that you're going to be in the Brighton Open Studios as well.
Yeah. So this time next week, Madness begins. I exhibited part of Artists Open House 2 years ago before the pandemic, but I had 8 other artists in my living room exhibiting, and I kept 2 of my paintings up. I didn't have anything to sell because I hadn't been painting for like years, but they encouraged me to keep some of my paintings up, and off the back of the great feedback I had about those paintings, I started painting again. So now I've got like a whole collection of my own stuff that I'm going to be exhibiting. Exciting but scary at the same time.
Oh, well done. Absolutely, that's fantastic. I empathize with everything you said. I stopped creating and painting and doing anything during IVF, and since I haven't really done very much at all. I just haven't had the confidence to do it, but just feedback like that is just priceless, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It goes really well for you. Let us know.
Thank you. I think that I've got a lot to thank, really, I think, from my old coach to get where I am, because I think when I saw a life coach the last time round, however many years ago that was, 6 years ago, he really recognized, and I discovered that I was missing that creative side in me, and I sort of like, there was all sorts of hang-ups about, from my past, about confidence and whatnot, and so he really drew that out in me. So yeah, I'm in a good place, I think.
That's really good. That's fantastic.
As long as no one's too mean to me.
Oh,
Walks
no.
in and walks out because they don't like it.
Oh,
No, I
love
hope.
them. They just, they don't know good art then, do they?
Yeah.
Silly.
Well, you just
And yeah, you can't appeal to everybody.
No,
no,
exactly.
exactly. That, and I think that's the good thing about having a house with like 9 different artists. That hopefully, somebody comes in and they like something of it,
Yeah.
because art's subjective. So
Absolutely.
I think-
how exciting though. I
Mhm.
can't wait.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, birthday, you're the guest, Sarah, other Sarah Lauren. Sarah
This
Lauren.
is weird.
Yeah, you're in the hot seat. Oh, Michael, this is fun, isn't it?
Be kind, be gentle.
Yeah. So we've invited you here today to talk about something that's very, very exciting that you're both collaborating on. And so the podcast, really, it's over to you two to tell our audience what you've been doing and why it's important. No pressure.
You should start, Sarah.
I was just like, oh, right, okay. Well, I mean, I guess so. We'll introduce Sarah in a minute, because not everybody
Yes.
might know Sarah. But I guess what we've been collaborating on is we are both very, very passionate about mental health, particularly the mental health of our community. I'm obviously a counsellor and Sarah's a coach. So we're kind of coming at it from opposite ends of kind of like the journey. I know we always talk about journey and we all sort of go, ick. But actually, in terms of our mental health, there is very definitely a journey. It's I tend to see the people at the very beginning, or kind of in the middle. There is no time frame on this. It's kind of where you are in terms of your state of mind with your mental health, and when you kind of reach out for help. And I started to notice in my own journey, and it's kind of why I retrained, if I'm honest with you, that there wasn't really any therapeutic space for our community. So when I went looking for help, which was a big deal for me to go looking for help in the first place, I was walking past play sets, I was walking past family photographs, I was being hit with a few bingos in that safe space, like, have you thought about adoption? Have you thought about this? And I was really quite shocked at how trained therapists couldn't sit and just listen to my pain rather than just try and fix it. So for me, that was why I retrained. And all the way through that training, I knew that it was kind of bigger than that. Yes, I love working with our community, but I really, really wanted to give us a voice and say, well, look, this is a thing. We do need therapists, even if they're not part of our community, to get on board with the fact that we have particular needs and particular needs in that therapeutic space, rather than just saying, oh, well, it's grief or it's shame or it's trauma. We have particular needs, and that is something that needs to be highlighted. We're not really visible at the moment. So that's kind of the project we're working on, the Childless Mental Health Hub, a place where people can come if they are either looking for help or a coach or a counsellor or a psychotherapist, or if they are a coach, a counsellor or a psychotherapist looking to collaborate and raise our voice in this space. That, in a nutshell, is what we're working on.
And it kind of is okay if I just intersect Sarah,
Yeah.
Sarah L. I kind of really, what you just said reflects why I started my blog and how we got in touch, really. So I started writing a blog about, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that now, because I felt that there wasn't enough support out there for my particular situation, which is a bit complicated, and it's not really relevant to today's subject. But I felt like if I wanted to talk about my own situation, about egg freezing and childless and more my confusion, and all I could find was sort of medical things about fertility and often about couples going through it. So I was really confused, and I actually reached out to a coach at the time, but it wasn't about childless. It was about my confusion about where I was in life. Where did I fit? Everyone was married with children, and I just felt really lost. And so I didn't reach out to a counsellor because I didn't feel like if it was something historic, it was something that I wanted to work forward with. And I think that's kind of sometimes the difference when everyone always says what's the difference between a counsellor and a coach, is that it's a different stage of your journey, like Sarah's just said. And I've got a history with mental health. I've never suffered personally with mental illness, but I'm very, very aware of my own mental health and where it dips, and the different part, even in a woman's cycle, I'm very conscious about that. And I've invested quite a lot in my own diet and health around my mental health. And I also supported a partner years ago who suffered with depression, and I've seen how that affected his work and my life and all the people around him. So it's something that I feel really passionately about, and I feel that even though we've come a long way in probably the last 10 years, there's still so much ignorance around it and not enough support, I think.
Oh, so true, isn't it? I think it's kind of what we're sitting with is that we are in kind of a transition, I think. I mean, my history, I'm different to Sarah. I've had a long history with mental health problems. And I think that's kind of why I was drawn to counselling rather than coaching. I am a life coach as well. But for me, my passion was helping people that, like me, have really struggled with their mental health, even before the childlessness came along. I mean, I think for me, I noticed that my reaction to my childlessness seemed far more extreme than perhaps just grief. I noticed that when people were grieving, it was a very different journey. I experienced mine as a trauma, and that was partly because of the stuff that predates it, my childhood. And I've worked very hard on picking myself back up. My 20s and 30s were marred with terrible mental health. And then along came my infertility. I call it my fertility shit show, which it was. And then obviously my hysterectomy as well. So it really threw me for a loop. So my mental health was already below par, and then along came childlessness. So for me, the counselling really draws me in because I do see people that have, I guess, a history before the childlessness comes along. It's such a word, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think for us collaborating together, I don't know about you, Sarah, but the first time I met you, we did not stop talking for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a word in. We were just like blah, 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 blah. But for me, I think what I like about Sarah is that she has a very different perspective to me. So I don't think this hub would work if we had both had the same perspective, because we want to come at it from very different angles. So Sarah is coaching, and I was confused in that moment, and that's the help I needed. Whereas I'm, mental health, had a history of mental health, and some people, that's what they're wrestling with. So I think the fact that we come at it from such different perspectives really adds, it's going to add credibility and two different perspectives that hopefully anybody that comes looking for help, they will be able to find it in the hub.
Yeah, and I think I should point out too that although I life coach for the childless community, I don't just coach the childless community, and I made that decision on purpose because I want to keep a reality of everyone's different and everyone's got different problems, and actually if we can understand other people's points of view, so if I speak to mothers and fathers and aunts and aunties and the whole cross section, whether you're young or old or in the middle, then hopefully we will become more of a unit rather than all this segregation that people don't understand people's views. So
yeah, no.
So can I just get a word in, please?
I told you, didn't you? Get me and Sarah together. You cannot get a word in.
I've been waiting too much.
So I have now, though. So I don't really want to lose the momentum, but just for our audience, Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
How far do you want to go back?
Look, it's totally up to you what you want to share, how you want to share it. But I know our audience will be going, who's that other woman? Who's that other Sarah?
Okay, so
Especially me, because I'm a nosy bugger.
I said already I live in Brighton. It's a very cosmopolitan part of the country. If people don't know it, I'm very liberal. But I came from a very different background to that. I actually grew up on a farm in the southwest of England, very rural. I have 3 brothers and sisters, and my parents are still together. I came from a very traditional family of you just believe, and I believed all my life that I was just going to have a family, that I didn't have a longing. I just assumed it would happen. Do you know what I mean? That's the reality of it. And society, as I realize now, has a total bias towards that. And I have to, correct my family now so many times about things that are, it says, people that I meet that I haven't seen for so many years, and they're like, the first question they say, "Oh, Sarah, you're not married yet," or "You're not, no partner." No. I'm like, oh God, why is life a tick box? It shouldn't be a tick box. Anyway, so that's my very background. I moved away. I went traveling, came to Australia, moved to New Zealand for a little while, then came back and moved to London. I've had a lot of relationships, some longer than others. I had one relationship with somebody who I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And he suffered with depression, and that really affected our relationship. We couldn't move forwards, and who knows, you don't know, do you? If he didn't have depression, it might not have worked out either way. But I wanted to have a family with him. It didn't work out, and I was 38 at that point when we broke up. And I was literally devastated. It was the hardest thing in the world because of my age. And I honestly believe that, because everyone around me had moved on. And I just didn't know where I fitted. And I panicked. I literally panicked. And I decided to freeze my eggs. And it was always with the onus of, I want to find a partner. I still want to conceive naturally if I possibly can, but there's some, hope that I might be able to use some frozen eggs. And that was several years ago, and things haven't happened like that. And I'm not the type of person that rushes into a relationship just to have babies. And I'm really now happy as a single person. So I have decided that life is not happening for me. And I won't have children. That's a reality that's been quite hard for me to articulate and tell people. And it's really only started to be able to, I've spoken to Sarah about it, and literally a handful of friends I've actually been able to be really honest and saying, I'm not going to have children. And really that the pandemic has kind of really hit home that. And obviously lots of people have suffered too, with the fact that you can't date, you can't meet anyone. And it feels like 2 years of my life is almost being like voided in that area, because it's hard enough to meet people when you're 45, which I am now, as it is, let alone taking away human contact and lockdowns and whatnot. So yeah, that's where I am really. I've had a lot of experience with life coaching personally. I found it hugely beneficial for my life, work life, personal life, everything. I find it a really empowering, positive way of moving forwards. I have had counselling, but I had counselling through the fertility side of things to make sure that I was, equipped to go through the process. And I trained to be a life coach, qualified 2 years ago. So, and then I met Sarah through that network. I actually didn't know anything about Gateway Women until I started to think, what makes me unique? And are there people out there that actually coach childless, not by choice community? And then I found Gateway Women. I just wish I had found all of that many years ago, and I found Sarah and everyone else, but better late than never.
I would just like to recognise the courage you're showing them by coming on the podcast. If you have a very small circle of people that you've talked to this about, so thank you.
No, that's all right.
Sarah.
So how did you both meet then? So give me the nitty gritty on that.
Because
I love
Sarah.
No, I think we met through we've had a couple of meetings with the network, haven't we? And Muriel Merrill Whale, who's obviously a counsellor as well in this space. And we just got talking, and then we decided we were going to meet for lunch. And I guess the rest is history, really, isn't it? We just sat and talked for solidly. I think the place was closing as well, wasn't it?
They didn't quite put the furniture up around us, but
no, they were.
That's always the best conversation if it's closing up around you.
They would basically drop in massive hints, though, that there was, and we looked around and oh, there's nobody else in it.
Yeah. Are you sure we can't get you anything more? You know, that kind of from the waitress
sweeping. Sweeping around us. But it's kind of like, when you meet somebody and you just immediately hit it off because you've got the same sort of interests and passions, even though you've got very different backstories. And that's kind of where it came from. And as I say, I had this idea for a long time, and I've sort of I hope you don't feel this way, Sarah, but I kind of feel I've almost sort of said, Sarah, you'd like to be involved in this, wouldn't you? So, and she's
that's how podcasts start as well. So.
I know. Just some gentle bullying.
Well, once upon a time, I ran a marathon on the back of one of those yes conversations. Yeah.
But so bless her, Sarah's come along for the ride, really, because I'm kind of, well, as Michael and Berenice know, I'm kind of, it's not going to be perfect. Let's just crack on with it. I'm just really excited to be working with somebody else that's kind of really as sort of excited and willing to just jump in and do it, really, because some people might try and rein me in.
Yeah, and I think sometimes through my other hat, as well as being an artist and a life coach, I used to have a full-time job in business until literally 3 weeks ago, and now I'm setting up as a business consultant. And I was saying to Sarah how useful it is when you're starting a project to not be in your own head about it, like just having a chat with somebody else, whether they're childless or not, it helps that project, because sometimes you can just get a bit tunnel vision. So I think that's where we've really helped, haven't we, bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yeah, it's been really good, because I mean, I'll be honest, I'm kind of an ideas person. I don't really do the structure, and Sarah's going, no, we need some structure to this. And it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because I just like, idea, right, I'm going with it. It's been great, actually, because Sarah's sort of given me some ideas for the website. Berenice has been very brilliant with sorting out our logo. So we've got a logo. Put me in touch with somebody for the landing page. So we should have a landing page any day now, which is very exciting. And it means that we can start talking to people and kind of connecting up with communities outside our own. Because as Sarah's saying, for us, it's not about talking to ourselves in our echo chamber. It's about uniting our voices as one and going out there in the big wide world and saying, look, we do need some recognition here for this particular area and in the mental health space. So it's not just going to be somewhere that people can come if they need help, and there'll be like listings for all of the people that are members of the network with our specialisms. It'll be somewhere where we share knowledge, we share research, because I'm going to be doing a master's later this year. So it's really important for our credibility and saying, well, look, we do need this space to say, well, here's the research, because there isn't that much out there when it comes to childlessness. There's some stuff, there is a few things around numbers, data, but there isn't anything through the mental health lens. And Sarah and I were talking about it, saying, well, I wonder if we were to look at our mental health as a collective, what would it look like? And you can only hazard a guess in terms of, depression, anxiety, trauma, suicide rates, there just isn't that data there. And so having the hub means that we can kind of have a place where we can share that and start to research it, and then share it with the kind of the wider communities that are out there that we kind of do need to be talking to.
So the way I'm understanding that is that you would be, one of those facets is you'll be looking at enriching the people in your network by sharing all those things.
Absolutely.
So I'm probably jumping the gun here, but would you see would you see in the future something like a almost like an accreditation to be able to, be able to give therapy to childless people? Is that in your future
Yes.
long-term plan?
Yes, it is.
Cool.
So for the counselling side, I can't speak for the coaching side. I'll let Sarah speak for that side. But for the counselling, I've already been speaking to people who just do counselling, don't work in my space, about whether they have ever worked with people who cannot have children, and they have. And it's kind of they've sort of said, oh, and I'd say, well, how have you worked with them? And they've sort of said, well, and this is what I've done. And I said, well, have you thought about, did you ever bring any bingos in? And they're like, well, what bingos? I said, did you ever say to them, have you thought about? And they went, yes, we have. And it's like, well, that isn't really keeping someone safe in what is meant to be their space to be not fixed, just listened to. And it's kind of the number of clients I've had who, bless their heart, have stuck with counselling and said, actually, I've had a counsellor that's caused me harm, and that really is not acceptable. I've had experiences of myself. I went to see a counsellor after my miscarriage, and I was an absolute mess. And the first thing she said to me is, number one, have you thought about antidepressants? Number two, have you thought about adoption? And it's like that is not. And at the time, obviously, I didn't know that wasn't okay. All I knew was that I was sitting there and I'm feeling unheard and shut down. And I lasted, I don't know why, but I went back 3 times. And by the third one, I went, yeah, I'm fine, I'm done, I don't need counselling. And that was the furthest from the truth that it could have been. And it's like, it's not acceptable to me that our community goes looking for a safe space with people that are trained who cannot provide that space. It makes me, as you can probably tell, it makes me quite angry. And the fact that
sounds like it's an opportunity for people who are in positions that we've all been in, because Sarah, I've been there too. I've gone the whole I'm fine, I'm all right, because I don't want to go back, dreading it, because it's going down avenues where things that parts of your brain can be poked around with by people, and if they don't have the skills and the safe space to fix it, you're left with an open wound there. I think it festers, and I'm quite sure that many of us in our community, if not all of us, have had that experience at some point. But it feels like there's an opportunity here, as well as an accreditation, for some peer-to-peer training, but also that anyone who's thinking they've come out of any situation, whatever that might be, related to infertility, and they need to know what to expect of their counsellor as well, or their coach. What are they actually looking for in that person? Is that something you feel like the childless mental health hub? Childless mental health hub. We haven't said it enough, and I think we've got to keep saying that, because we've got to make sure we mention your website. The Childless Mental Health Hub. We've got to make sure that we say it a lot. That's something that you think that you can offer as well within the website and the facilities and the resources that you're planning to launch with.
Absolutely. I mean, with my other hat on, I'm a trainer. I do it in financial services, but I am a trainer, and I think talking to my other colleagues, there is a space for them to go and get CPD on this, continuous professional development. So we as counsellors are required to do that, not to have a certain number of hours, but to go and make sure that we are filling in our blank spaces, if you like, so that we are working safely and ethically. But I've already said to people that I've spoken to that are interested in being in the network, that there is a space for us to go out and not educate, but kind of help other counsellors that have not got lived experience to be able to work safely with our community and not cause harm. It's one of the 3 bullet points that we have about why we've set up. So absolutely, it's one of the first things that I was like, well, this needs to be done. So yeah. Sarah, did you want to talk about coaching? I'm very aware that
I think I can't put it from a personal point of view, because I kind of almost missed the window. Like I had like sort of, I looked things in hindsight to do with my grief stage, I would say. I looked back and thought, oh, that's how I was feeling then. I could have got counselling then. but it certainly resonates about coaching training, because when I did my coaching training, there were so many people on the course that it's been, saturated through the pandemic, because everyone's like, oh, I'll be a coach. It's unregulated in the UK still. Anyone can they don't even need to do any training. You could just set up a website and be a coach. And there was loads of people on my course that were hadn't even been coached in the past, which I find baffling. How can you know what that experience is like if you haven't been there yourself, and when I finished my training, and I was having a chat to the course leader and the owner of the company about the childless space and whether it would be something that she would think would be viable for me to offer my services and help, she didn't even know it was a thing, she didn't even know there was a community out there, and kind of almost dismissed me of pursuing it. So if she's an example, and I'm not, she was a fabulous trainer as such, and it was a great course to go on, but there's obviously a massive lack of awareness if she's an example, that company is an example of awareness of the childless community out there. And I honestly think it's a horrible thing to say. I think coaching, there will be a problem soon, whether it's in the UK or somewhere else, if it's not regulated, because in the US they're like way far in advance. But it's only going to be a matter of time, I think, that something awful is going to happen to somebody, because they haven't had somebody that's actually been trained properly, regulated properly. What's stopping anyone going to see a counsellor that's just like decided to step up and has got a like fancy website after a week or something? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it's so true. It is worrying, isn't it? Mm. Just waiting for something to go pear-shaped.
Mm.
I will, absolutely. Yeah, that's quite a scary thought.
Yeah.
So Sarah B, that is would that be part of the coaching, I guess, facet of the Childless Mental Health Hub? I got it in. Would you be looking at some sort of regulation in terms of the coaching side of things as well?
Well, it would be
eventually.
It would be great. I think the thing is, it needs to come from the coaching umbrella, not just coaching for childless within the UK. And certainly, if there's certain people and focuses like us that are pushing for it, I think then there's going to be more emphasis on regulation. And perhaps there are associations of coaching, etc., and so if you get those kind of associations on board, it's more likely that they have more weight in our decision making.
To be fair, counselling is not regulated either over here, which is scary. So pretty much you can do the same thing if you do an online course, for not many hours, you can still set up as a counsellor.
And that's why I think, if somebody's searching on the just Google searching life coaches for childless women, men, what are they supposed to be looking for when they get to that website? Are they supposed to be looking for a certificate or some case studies? Is a 20-30 minute chat with somebody enough? I think those kind of questions are how you select your counsellor or coach are vital, to that decision. How can anyone make a decision after 20 minutes and then fork out however much money? Some people even charge like block bookings,
More likely to be able to find actually, I think about how people come and find graphic designers and website designers and things. Actually, that's kind of pretty much how you find one of us, and that's literally we're creating something that can be undone. To a large degree, not entirely with digital footprints, but we can kind of undo it. And at the end of the day, screw it, it's a website, it's a piece of paper at the end of the day. And when people invest a lot into it, it's not the same. counseling and coaching, you can unravel an awful lot and not provide that aftercare and the support for literally such a very small investigative finding somebody who could literally effectively change your well-being and your life for good, but also for a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, I've seen lots of courses that are advertised on Instagram. I don't know about for counseling, but for coaching, like one day or an afternoon. I'm like, how on earth can anyone get away with selling those kind of courses? And then you can label yourself as a life coach afterwards. So
wow. Oh my God.
I have seen that. I have to say I've seen it too, because I've thought about it in terms of like business mentorship and things like that. And actually what I found is that it's very kind of, it's like, this is a coaching course and you can use it for everything. And no, because it wouldn't be relevant to what I'd like to kind of think about and do. So how can you take one thing? You're quite right, Sarah. It's a bit lawless, and it seems to be like 6 weeks to be a counsellor, and yeah, you get 6 weeks to be a graphic designer, and I can tell you that's not a qualification. It's just flashing your money.
They do it with a crayon.
Oh, PowerPoint probably. Anyway, but yeah, it's yeah, you kind of know then. It's quite easy to find out what constitutes proper qualification in that area without too much thought. But when it's something like counselling and coaching, that actually is quite a difficult area to unravel and to know what's appropriate and what is the right qualification to have. Frightening, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's sobering thought.
Well, of course, there's so much harm. That's kind of, I think if the thing that we said that was really important was that we know that the people in that network we trust, and that they are qualified, and that we're not, we haven't got people that have done a day's course. It's so important to us that actually we aren't inadvertently causing harm by almost, in a way, advocating for that person on our hub. So it is important to us that these people are qualified and we know and trust that they are safe.
That's really, really good. Is there any opportunity within the hub? It's an awkward question, maybe one you haven't thought of yet, but about kind of feedback and is that something you'd be looking to do, or is that between the person and the person that is coaching or counselling them?
So I think for counselling, I can't speak for life coaching, but for counselling, most all qualified counsellors like myself who've done I've done 5 years of training now, they will be registered with an overseeing body, so like the British Association of Counsellors and Psychotherapists or a National Counselling Society, something like that. So it should be in a contract with your individual counsellor that if you have a problem with them, that you can go to those overseeing bodies. So anybody that has done a sort of a day's course online without any actual experience won't be able to get membership to those bodies. So that's kind of the first thing to look for, really. But yeah, the complaints would go through that overseeing body. I think they could do feedback. It might be something we look at, but actually then you're kind of going into that almost like pseudo overseeing, and that at this early stage feels like a lot of work for me, if I'm honest with you. What about you, Sarah?
I think it's even less with coaching, because like I said, you don't even need to do a course to become a coach. I was at the end of my course, I asked the person who ran or owned the company, should I register with the Association of Coaching? And she said, if you want to, but as there's no regulations, that's money that you're forking out, and the only person that holds that of any value really are when you go to do sort of corporate coaching in big organizations that look for that. I've got my certificate on my website so that people know that I've done a course, but it needs to have more detail, I think, about what your basic minimums would be. If some courses are like a day, some take 2 years. You know, I had to do so many hours worth of coaching and academic side of things, and I was assessed all the way through my course. So part of that journey, I have been assessed, and I have been given a certificate to say, you know, I was at a correct level to be able to then start, you know, charging for my services. But not everyone's gone through that. So I think certainly a guide is going to be really helpful on the hub to help people with not only, oh, here's a list of counsellors and coaches, but, you know, what you should be really looking for in that process.
So when does this all launch? What's the time scale on this for you? Obviously, I know about the logo, but for the purposes of our audience, where exactly are you right now, and what happens next?
So we've got it's kind of like a soft launch. It's kind of we're not going ta-da, you know, but we're going to have a landing page, because I am off to the London Fertility Show next weekend, and I wanted to have something to show people that I'm networking with. And then in the background, we're going to be doing lots of work around the website and getting some structure in place, which Sarah B is better at than me. So I'm hoping to have actually something really tangible that people can go and say, right, I need some help. This is where I can go by September at the very latest. So there's going to be a lot of work in terms of, for me, getting the directory first. I think the guide is a cracking idea in terms of what you should look for from your counsellor/coach. But yeah, it's kind of having something really tangible by September that people can go know that there's something out there they can just go to if they're looking for help.
The website URL.
It's really catchy. www.childlessmentalhealthhub.com. So I could have gone for a shorter one, but I'll be honest with you, it would have cost a lot more money.
we did actually. Sarah and I, we can confess that we actually riffed this with the website. The person that I put Sarah in touch with for the website, and we were just like, what? We were literally.
What's it called?
Majority of the call.
Oh, it was so funny. We were coming up with all sorts, weren't we? And we're going, no.
I got them all scribbled down here, and I don't think that the idea initially was that I do your website as well, but unfortunately I was just too busy. So I wrote in a really lovely friend of mine, who's fantastic, Susie, and I don't think she was expecting that, but she did come back to me saying, I really enjoyed that. I was like, yeah, I know, we like to kind of like, you know, give you something different to do.
Oh, Susie's brilliant, and she's actually an ally. She's not a member of our community, she's an ally, isn't she? Which is just brilliant. It's bridging that gap.
Yeah, she's I in my business, so I don't necessarily work specifically with people who are childless, because that makes it quite difficult to get the right skills from my clients, but I always look for allyship, and she very much, Susie is very much an ally, and there's a few other people I know as well who have been actually part of our CIC journey, the Full Stop CIC as well, which is something else that we obviously need to share on our birthday episode as well. Someone needs to talk about that.
So much going on.
There's too much going on, to be honest, at the moment, because we have a name. And I don't think, do you know what? I will confess that I must be, I think, in the throes of some sort of perimenopausal God knows what, because honestly, the brain farts that I'm having have been so extreme that it's just been like, I've no idea what my own name is today. Anyway, literally everything's a list. It's all on Trello. It's there. I can run my business, can't do much else. But I don't think we've said to our audience what our CIC name is, have we?
No, we haven't.
Who's going to tell them?
Go on, Berenice, you can.
The Full Stop Childless Community.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
I should have that sound effect here, but I don't.
Oh no! Do we do them?
Ta-da!
Ta-da! That'll do. That's fine. I
know where the crickets one is, but that won't be appropriate.
When we launch Patreon funding, I can categorically assure our listeners that we won't be spending them on sound effects. We know that much. So yes, we are now called, or we are not called. We are still the Full Stop Podcast. So we carry on as we normally do. It's and these are actually Susie's words that I've written down, and it was business as usual. And that's what she said. And isn't she just so sensible? So we will carry on as normal. This will be a podcast. It will turn up every single month without fail. In some form, we will be here and carrying on. But we will also be setting up our Patreon funding. We're just waiting for confirmation of the CIC with accountants and legal things that Sarah, you're dealing with for us. Thank you.
Yep.
And Patreon, we'll be setting up the Patreon funding, and those of you that are subscribing to our listeners list, which you can do on our website, will be seeing the videos. So after every single episode, I'm going a bit northern there, after every single episode, you will see a video pop up from us on our YouTube channel. And you can find that also on our website and in the newsletter as well. And that's where we discuss everything that happens in the episodes, the three of us as presenters. You can actually see us talking as opposed to hear us talking. And the Patreon funding, everything will be going on to the Patreon site once we get that working. And that's where you'll find the videos. And we'll be launching a series of membership things so you can become part of the Full Stop Childless community, which will also be very, very closely connected to the Childless Mental Health Hub. And there's also something coming up later on in the year that's still in my head. I'm not as far forward as Sarah, but a thing coming up about business mentorship. And I'm unraveling it at the moment. I'm trying not to go, let's create the website, let's do this. There's an element of launch that I'm saying, but I just need to give it a bit more thought. And that will be much, much later on in the year, probably around Christmas time. But
Exciting times.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I get quite a lot of people going, yeah, and I'm thinking, it's still in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to steal your thunder, because I think this is just so important. And Sarah, you've spoken to us about this a few times when we've had little catch-ups, and we're just so thrilled that it's a real thing. It's coming to life. It's incredible. Well done.
It's extremely important that, you know, once you immerse yourself in our community, you get to meet so many people. You know, the story that you told, Sarah, about going to that, you know, counsellor, and, you know, the horror story, there's so many of them out there. Yeah. So many, you know, and so this is going to be brilliant. You know, we you'll be looking after those people that need the skills, to survive, so to speak. But then, Sarah B, you'll be looking at, you know, for them to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I bloody love that. I'm nicking that.
Thrive and survive.
I recently
survive and thrive.
We needed a strap line for the logo. I should have just asked Michael.
I recently wrote a blog post about passion and purpose, because I feel like those are the two things that I'd lost, and I didn't know where I was going. And since, you know, defining those, and they're not like a set thing forever, because I believe that life changes and you keep on reevaluating things. But striving is definitely about, for me, passion and purpose, having a purpose in life. And at one time I thought, oh, I'm just going to be, you know, I have all these other things, but it's fine because I'm going to have little people that I'm responsible for, and that will be my purpose. And without that, when everyone else is talking about theirs around you, because I think I have 2 friends that don't have children, and that was their choice not to have children. So I am very much on my own, and I have quite a good wide circle of friends. So, you know, I can't advocate for this hub enough, you know, in terms of mental health and making sure that you don't feel that you're on your own.
I totally understand that, Sarah, because just listening to what you said there about having purpose, in the Clan of Brothers, as an example, there is always a lot of talk about what is my purpose.
Yeah.
You know, so having the ability to go somewhere safe and a coach would be fantastic. So that brings me to a question: have you got any blokes on the list yet?
Excuse me. What on our directory?
Yeah.
Yes, we have. It's got to be. So we want to be diverse. So obviously, it wouldn't be very helpful if we're all of the same sort of, white middle class. So we are looking to cover all of our community, not just one little segment of it. So no, we've got chaps. We've got obviously representatives of the LGBTQ plus community. At the moment we've got people that are interested all across the globe. So we've got America, Australia, UK, and a couple in Europe. So yeah,
global. Then it's a global.
It's gone global, darling. Yes.
You two are just like have to ask you for autographs soon. I think it's absolutely incredible. I genuinely I'm sitting here looking at the two of you talking, and clearly you have a very, very deep and amazing friendship, which is only to be expected knowing Sarah as we do. And I think that's wonderful, but also just that passion. You're quite right. It's the passion. I can see it in your faces. It's just amazing. And I'm just thrilled that it's happening. This is amazing. And the power and the passion that you have to make life just a little bit better for all the people who come to our community, to this space. And goodness me, it's a tough space to be in. I think it's tough for our listeners to even listen to us, and I think that's such an important acknowledgement that I'm always conscious of. I think we all are. Every time we record the episode or do something with the podcast, it's how difficult it is to say, okay, I need to listen to the full stop. That's actually a big thing, and to go to a counselling and a coaching hub and to get the right support is life-changing. Your people's lives, just amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Berenice. Well done.
I'm the one doing the emotional stuff. Michael, come on, get back to form, please.
Berenice, you need to come along with me the next time I try and do a work pitch, and you can just speak on my behalf.
Let's trade.
Just nutshell it all for us.
I'm a good talker, but when it comes to like talking about myself and putting myself on a platform, I'm never very good. So
we are terrible at it. On the podcast, we are terrible for it. I have to say, and also I think constantly I have a business mentor who constantly breaks me for not saying enough about actually what I do, and actually the importance of how design saved my life. And when you talk about identities and losing that identity, and I think that's why I looked at your Twitter post about your art and about the Open Studios. I thought, oh God, that's so powerful. And I really need to give myself a kick up the arse. And actually, I think probably what I need to do is find a coach to give me the kick up the arse to do that. It is an identity. So actually, in a way, what you're doing is also beneficial to me, and will be to so many other people too. So thank you. It's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. And we hope that you are just as excited for Sarah Squared, sorry, couldn't resist that maths joke, as we are. And if you want to find out more about their project, you can find it at www.childlessmentalhealthhub, all one word.com. And if you want to find out more about our podcast, or you have a burning topic we have not covered, please reach out to us, as we'd like to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, and of course at our website www.thefullstoppod.com. And here you can sign up for our listeners list, where you can keep up to date with what's going on in our worlds. And as always, it's important for us to let you know you're not alone.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been odd. This has been really weird. Not used to talking this much.
I think so.
You weren't listening to us. You weren't listening to us the right questions. No,
I wasn't. I was wittering on, and then you had to rein me in. I was like, flipping heck, Lawrence. Felt like I had verbal diarrhea at the beginning. It's like, blah, 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 blah. And Michael goes, "Can I just get a word in?" He's like, "Yeah, you're right."